What should you do when your weight loss plateaus? I'm going to be running you through 5 reasons why your weight loss can plateau and what to do about it. Welcome back to Body Beyond the Scales, a podcast that helps you get stronger and more confident in your body through building better habits. So, to lose weight, we need to be in a calorie deficit. And that just means that calories in are lower than calories out. And we end up with this energy imbalance. So calories out comes down to things like your activity levels, the thermic effect of food, which is how many calories you burn in digestion, your NEAT, which is just how many calories you burn doing movement. So if you're watching the video of this, you'll see that I'm talking with my hands right now. That will be burning calories. And your BMR, which is just how many calories it takes to exist, like the cost of existing if you were to do nothing but like watch Netflix all day. That's how I use it as an example. So that's what your calories out comes down to. Calories in involves food and drink. So basically anything that goes in your mouth and gets digested, that is calories in. Now, if you're not in a calorie deficit, there's not an energy imbalance, you won't lose weight. Now, you may see weight fluctuations, but you won't lose weight and you won't lose fat. Because what we need to see over time is that energy deficit, so your body goes to recruit from the fat cells to get the energy from there instead. So in order to lose weight, we need to be in a calorie deficit. And that's key to understand, because if you aren't in a calorie deficit, then you won't be losing weight. And that might be why your weight has plateaued. But there are a few different reasons as to why the calorie deficit isn't being created. And that's what I want to get into today. I want to get into those reasons so that you can, if you are in a weight loss plateau, just scrub them out, make sure that you've cleared them out. And I'm going to be running through, going from the most common reasons to the least common reasons as to why you plateaued. So work through the first few first. Don't just jump to reason number 5 and go, yeah, it's definitely that, because chances are it's not. Let us start off with one of the areas that I see is probably the most common issue, and that's inconsistency with tracking. And it comes down to not tracking calories accurately. Now, this is where we therefore think that we might be in a calorie deficit, because when we look at our calories in that we recorded on our tracking app versus our calories out, we're like, well, I'm in a deficit, but I'm not losing weight. I must be broken. And usually that comes just down to you've not been tracking your calories accurately. You might have been missing meals. You might have been missing snacks out. You might have not put the condiments in. You might have been nibbling off your partner's plate, off the kids' plate. And all of those things add up to eradicating your calorie deficit. So where you thought you were in a calorie deficit, or you tracked that you're in a calorie deficit, that wasn't actually the case. So it's really important to check that you are actually recording what you think you're recording, and actually making sure you're being honest with yourself. Now, another thing here is that if you don't weigh out your food, you will be guessing what's going on there. And even though we can say oh, well, I had a portion of this, or I had a medium avocado, for example, the calorie discrepancy in that between what you think is a medium, what I think is a medium, what you think is a large, what I think is a large, what your tracking app thinks is a large, will be so big that it is just again eradicating that calorie deficit. And that's probably reason number it's probably the top reason why people aren't losing weight. If you think that you're plateauing, it's usually down to inconsistency when it comes to tracking, where you think that you are in a deficit, but you're not quite on it with those with that tracking, and that's leading to you not getting the accurate data in. The next reason is that you're being inconsistent with your steps or your activity levels. So when we calculated your calories out, that will have taken into account your activity levels. If you've used my calorie calculator, you'll see that there's a question on there, and it will ask you how many steps that you're doing on average. You'll see there's a question asking you how many workouts you do per week where you lift weights, and you'll see that there's a question on there that asks you how many other sessions you do that won't be accounted for in your steps and are not including that weightlifting. So you'll see I've kind of broken that activity down into three sections. If you've never used my calorie calculator before and you want to try it out, I'll pop a link to it in the show notes or in the description below. So just click on that and you can go find it in there. So when it comes to your activity levels, if you're saying, yeah, I'll be doing 3 gym sessions a week and I'm going to be hitting 8,000 steps per day, but in reality, you're averaging 7,000 steps per day, and in reality, you probably average 2 gym sessions per week. We're 1,000 steps short per day, which over the week is 7,000 steps, and where over the month, we're 4 gym sessions short. So our calories out have actually been inaccurately calculated. And that therefore means that, again, we've got that inconsistency where we thought we were in a deficit, but actually calories out just wasn't quite as high as what we thought it was. So it's really important to track with as much actual data as we can get. So check on things like your phone and have a look and see what the averages are on there. So if you go onto the Apple Health app or the Samsung Health app or whatever you use, if you go onto there, it will tell you your average steps. And if you look at your average over the last 4 weeks, that should give you a good idea of how many steps you are doing. And you can then track how many gym sessions have I done. Well, actually, over the last 4 weeks, I've done about 2 sessions a week and then work from there. So go off actual data rather than off what you think or what you hypothetically would like to do. If you're just starting out, you could only hypothesize off what you're doing. What I would suggest in those scenarios is that you actually just base it on what you're currently doing and then rework it out down the line and then look back on the last 4 weeks. So to be honest, in any situation, think about the last 4 weeks and then look backwards and use that as the technique rather than trying to preempt what you're going to do, because you not usually stick to things that we think that we will be able to stick to. So look at what you actually do rather than what you would like to do. Next, so the next reason is that you've not really hit a plateau. Now, sometimes what can happen is when we're weighing ourselves, if we weigh ourselves just once per week, we see the number and we go, oh, it's not gone down. Oh, it's not gone down. And you might do that, say 2, maybe 3 weeks in a row. And it's not changed for whatever reason. We don't know whether you have weighed yourself on your highest day, your lowest day of the week, your mid-range day. We don't know what day of the week that was. You might have been due on your period one of the weeks. The week before, you might have eaten a load of the day before, the next week, you might have eaten a load of carbohydrates. And then the week after that, the day before you weighed yourself, you might have eaten a lot of salt. So in all of those scenarios, you've got a lot of water retention. And it might be that therefore that number looks like it hasn't changed, but in reality it has. So what we want to do is we want to look at the data, and I want you to think about your weight and the scales with as little emotion as possible. Now that might sound a bit weird or a bit of a weird thing to say, but I want you to think like a scientist when it comes to your data, and I want you to think, how can I use this data to my advantage? I want you to weigh yourself every single day, first thing on a morning, before you've eaten or drank anything, after you've been for a week, and with your kit whipped off. I don't want you wearing anything, as minimal clothing as possible at this point, because we want to create basically the most regular circumstances as possible that you can repeat every single day. And that is the best time to create the most repeatable circumstances. Now, if you're doing that every single day, at the end of the week, what I do when I'm working with my one-to-one clients is I take an average weight of all of those weights added up and divided by 7, for example, if they've done 7 weigh-ins, and I also take their lowest weight. And each week I will track to see if there's been a change between their average weight and their lowest weight. If there's been a drop in the lowest weight but not in the average, I'll be like, I'm not too bothered. If there's been a drop in the average but not in the lowest, I'll be like, not too bothered. And if there's not been a drop in both, I'll be like, okay, maybe we need to pay a bit of attention here. And this is when we can then use our numbers and use our data to make decisions, because I'm making the decisions off data, not off a feeling. We look at those numbers. Now, if you're seeing that week 1 to week 2, there's been no change, don't worry too much about that. As I mentioned, there's lots and lots of factors that could be affecting things. If you are due on your period, you might find that for that entire week, pre-period, you are holding on to water, you are inflamed, you are retaining water, and you're just not having a good time on the scales. If we made a decision and went, God, we got to drop calories right now, that might be a rush decision. So what I like to do is get 2 to 3 weeks worth of data rather than just 1 to 2 weeks worth of data, and look and make a decision based off of that. So if we've not seen a change between week 1 and 2 and then 2 and 3, then we'll start to make a change. So typically that will only be over a 2-week spectrum. We'll just have 3 weeks worth of data. And again, it's just about making sure that you're acting on what's in front of you, acting on facts, not on feelings. So if there's a change across those weeks, and even if it's a change by 200 grams, where the lowest weight might have dropped by 200 grams each week, we know you're in a deficit. We just know it's not a very big deficit. So we can take that into account. Now, if you are strength training and you are lifting weights, it could be a possibility that you are growing muscle at the same time. If you're a beginner, this is more common than what it is if you are someone who is advanced. Now, typically, if you are listening to this podcast, I'm going to assume that you are a beginner. Even if you've been to the gym before and you've done what you're doing, chances are in terms of technical training age, you're probably a beginner. If I look at my technical training age, I've been training in the gym for about 5 years on and off. I am still probably classed as a beginner. It's not a personal thing. It's just in terms of how one trains in the gym, it tends to mean you're probably a beginner. So we will take beginner status into account. And I might be wrong, some of you might be intermediates, but let's say that you are in that beginner phase. You are probably growing and developing muscle very quickly and at a faster rate than what someone who has been training for 10, 20 years consecutively, lifting weights, following a progressive overload program. Like, you will be gaining weight, you'll be gaining muscle faster than what they would be able to. So taking that into account, you might find that your weight is not moving as fast, but you are noticing when you're looking at your pictures, you are looking more defined, you're looking more jacked, like the muscles are starting to come through. So all of this is a good thing if that's happening. So again, just think about that wider context. And that's why I always encourage people to take more measurements than just scale weight. So if you scale weight, photos, and like measurements, like tape measurements, you can usually end up in a really good spot there. And you have a very clear idea of what's going on. So that would be my recommendations there, and just knowing if you really plateaued. So if that's not the case and we're only seeing a 200-gram decrease each week, then what I would recommend doing is just making that calorie deficit bigger. You can do this in two ways. You can increase your steps or you can decrease your food. Simple as. I would probably add 1,000 steps, or I would probably add minus 100 calories. And you've got those two options there and you should be grand. Coming on to reason number 4 then of why your scale isn't moving, you've outweighed lost your calorie deficit. So the way to think of this is that when you lose weight, you get smaller and therefore you become less expensive because life gets a little bit easier. The way that I like to describe this is, imagine that we were walking back from big Tesco's and we've done our shopping and all we've bought is, let's say, bags of sugar, 1 kilogram bags of sugar, and I've got a ton of like 1 kilogram bags of sugar in one hand and a load in the other hand. I'm walking up a hill. Well, I'm walking home from big Tesco's with all my sugar in my bags. I'm thinking, this is hard work. I'm going to be burning more calories because that's going to be more expensive for me to do because it's harder work. Now imagine I put those bags of sugar down. I put my bag for life down in one hand, bag for life down in the other hand. I'm now sugarless and I'm walking, I'm carrying on walking. Is that going to be easier or is that going to be harder? It's going to be easier, right? So imagine that you have lost weight. You are no longer carrying around these bags of sugar, these kilogram bags of sugar. You might have had 10 kg and you 5 in each hand. You've popped that down. All of a sudden, that walk has got easier. Now, that means that you are less expensive in terms of calories. So as you get lighter, you become less expensive because life gets that little bit easier. And that is really important to remember because that will mean that your calorie needs are going to go down. So say you might have started off by burning 3,000 calories per day because you had that extra weight, you might now be burning 2,500. Now, if you were eating 2,500 calories and that was a calorie deficit, as your calorie needs have dropped, your energy expenditure your energy intake is the same, you've lost that calorie deficit. And that's not because you're no longer eating 2,500 calories. It's because you need to drop the calories again because your calorie needs have dropped. And that's great. Like, that's a great position to be in. So bear that in mind if that could be something that is happening. I would like to caveat this with and just highlight the importance of resistance training, especially whilst you are losing weight. And this happens whether you are taking GLP-1 medications, whether you are losing weight without medication, like whichever way that you are losing weight, and this tends to happen a lot with crash diets, is if you are not resistance training, your body will go when it is in a calorie deficit, and we've said that the energy out is higher than what energy in is, and it has to go find that energy from somewhere. It will go for the most expensive things that your body has. Now, fat cells are very useful, and having fat around is very useful because if you have fat in your body and there is a famine, you have spare resources. You're not going to die. Now, your body's job is to basically help you survive and reproduce. As a human, you would like to survive and reproduce to some degree. And that's what's really important there, is that you want to recognize that like your body is functioning almost as an animal. It's not functioning physiologically, it's functioning in its like animal sense. It's not functioning based on today's society. It's not up to date with what's happening. It's still working off what happened 11,000 years ago. So it doesn't know if there's a famine coming. So you having fat cells, it wants to keep them around just in case. So what it does is if you're in a calorie deficit and you're not doing something resistance training, it will get rid of the most expensive thing and it will keep around the fat cells. Now, the most expensive thing is unfortunately muscle mass and lean mass in general. So that will include things like bone mass, muscle around your organs, muscle around your organs. And that is not what we want to get rid of. So what we want to get rid of, and it will go to the muscle mass first, like your say like your bicep muscle mass, it will go to like other areas first and it will get rid of that and it will work its way basically into the fat cells, and it will be reluctant to use those fat cells. Unless you tell your body, hang on, we can't get rid of this muscle mass, we can't get rid of this bone mass because we need it. And the way that you tell your body that you need it is you use it. And the way that you use it is you lift some weights. So, or do some sort of resistance training. If you're doing something in which you are having weight or resistance placed against you and against the movement, that will help increase your muscle mass. So say, for example, you lift a lot of heavy boxes at work, that will be that is resistance, even though it's not traditional weight. It doesn't matter, like, it is weights that you are using basically. So taking that all into account, if you are not resistance training and you are losing weight, you will be losing some lean mass. Now, if you lose lean mass is also more expensive metabolically, which also means that your metabolism is going to slow down a little bit. This kind of comes into a bit of an issue, and I will talk more about this when I do an episode about like long-term weight loss maintenance, which will be coming up at some point. I'm doing a lot of research into that at the moment, so it'll be coming soon, at some point in the future. So when you lose weight and you lose weight quickly, let's say you lose a lot of muscle mass with it, your body is going to want you to get back to a point where your fat cells are full. So you lose some fat and you lose a load of muscle. Your body is going to want you to get back to a point where your fat cells are full again, and it will therefore encourage you to like increase that like fat cell fullness. And I'm going to go into more detail with this on the fifth and final point. Then you therefore increase in weight again because your body is sending all these signals out to you that you like need to eat more, and like the fat cells like want to be refilled again. When it's sending all these signals out to you, you will start eating more, and what it will do is it will refill the fat cells first, and you don't end up then your weight ends up increasing and your body's happier because your weight's increasing, but you've not replaced the muscle mass that you've lost, you've replaced the fat mass that you've lost. So let's say, and I'm going to use completely arbitrary numbers, let's say you started off and you had 10 units of muscle and 10 units of fat. You lost weight, and because we did a quick diet, a quick fix, you lost 5 units of muscle and you lost 3 units of fat. So in total, 8 units have gone down. Your body then goes, I don't want to be at this low weight. My fat cells are not as full as they want to be. I want to fill them back up again. I can see that we've lost weight. We've lost 8 of weight. We want to increase back up again. So what it will do is it will start to encourage you to eat more. Now, if you're not resistance training, you're not lifting any weights, your body goes, well, we don't need this muscle mass. So even though you've lost 5 of muscle mass, what we're going to do is we're actually going to increase fat by 8 again. So you end up with more fat and less muscle. Now that muscle, as I mentioned, is already metabolically more expensive. You burn more calories from muscle than what you do from fat. Your metabolism's decreased a little bit. And this is a recurring problem if you are someone who is a yo-yo dieter, because you have constantly just lost muscle, regain fat, lost muscle, regain fat. Now you will regain a little bit of muscle. It's not like completely all one or all the other, but for the sake of this argument, it was much easier just to explain it like that. So I want you to take that into consideration about when you think about losing weight this time. I would like for you to think, oh, maybe I should lift some weights. Because what we want to do is make sure we're looking after your body. So please lift some weights. That's all I've got to ask for you. Which brings me on to point number 5. And this is where, so just re-summarize that point actually, it was just that you've outweighed, lost your calorie deficit, and you've lost weight, you become less expensive, and you have therefore calories in versus calories out are like now equal again, but it's not because you've changed anything on the input side, it's because the output side has changed. So let's come on to that last reason. And the final reason, and this is the most irregular for people, and the impact of this is the smallest, but it can be a reason that you hit a plateau, especially if you are in a smaller body and you're trying to lose weight. And that's metabolic adaptation. Now, this was something that I was really I didn't believe in for a long time, and I've been doing a lot of research around it, and I was like, turns out this is a thing. And the reason that I didn't believe it is because the effects of it are so minimal, and people spoke about this thing called starvation mode. Starvation mode, I always like to clarify, it's not a thing. So the idea behind starvation mode was if you eat 1,200 calories, you tell your body it's not safe and it'll stop losing weight and it will hold on to fat. Not true. That is not how it works. If you are in a calorie deficit, you will lose weight. Otherwise, and this is the argument that lots of people make, there wouldn't be starving kids in Africa. People would not die of starvation. Bodies would not function. Not the case. Not the case. That's not how it works. If you're in a calorie deficit, you will lose weight. So if 1,200 calories is a calorie deficit, you will lose weight. When one decides to lose weight, whether you try to lose weight in a sustainable way or whether you try to lose weight in a quick fix way or whether you try to lose weight in any which way, when you try to lose weight and you go into a calorie deficit, your body will sense that there is a drop in energy intake and it will go, there's a drop in energy intake, and then it will go, shit, we're using the fat cells. We're using up our reserves. And it will go, oh, do you know what? We're going to make things a little bit more efficient around here, so we're not burning as many calories. And what you might notice, and for some people this is effective more than others, is you decrease in behaviors like hand movements and hand gestures. You might notice that you are fidgeting less, and this is a decrease in something called NEAT, and this is your body getting more conservative. There's also an impact that it has on your BMR, and that's where cell function becomes slightly more efficient. So it might be that your mitochondria, which is a powerhouse of the cell, becomes 30% more efficient, and that increase in efficiency means you burn fewer calories from those functions. And that therefore means that, like, as time goes on, your body has become more metabolically efficient, which therefore means you burn fewer calories. So you might have thought, oh, well, my energy expenditure, according to this calculator, says that I'm burning 2,000 calories. But actually, because you've lost weight, you're now burning 1,800 calories. And the way that I would like to explain this, that I explain this to other people, is that I used to be 83 kg. I am now about 65 kg. If I lost, if I'd have only ever been 65 kg and I'd have never weighed more than that, and I didn't have some half-empty fat cells, I would therefore have a higher metabolic rate than what I currently do. So my fat cells, my body, and my whole body and my cells in my body will be more efficient and will burn fewer calories than someone who's always been 65 kg. So basically, losing weight and keeping that weight off means that you will have a slower metabolism because of that. And a few of the things will be to do with that muscle that I mentioned earlier, but like taking that aside, there is still metabolic adaptation. Now, the effects of this metabolic adaptation really varies, and it tends to be based on the scale of weight that you have lost. The more weight that you've lost, the bigger the spectrum this will be. It can go down from being as little as like 50 calories to being like 300 calories. And I think 300 calories is actually the highest that there's been seen. And that's more when people have lost, like, they've gone from like 150 to 100 kg down to like 100 kg. And that is a huge drop. They've lost 50 kilograms. They've lost a significant amount of their body weight. And that is the effect that they're seeing. So chances are, if you've lost 10 kg, 20 kg, 30 kg, like, you've not experienced a crazy amount of metabolic adaptation on the whole. Now, there is also something else actually, and I will bring this up again at a later point, where appetite can also increase based on like how many calories you've lost. Appetite increases, and this is all to do with the fact that your body wants you to regain the weight. Like, your body will literally want you to regain the weight because it's worried that if there is a famine, there's an issue. So you can see your body just wants you to survive. And this is a factor that I want you to know about, but I want you to acknowledge that you can't change it. You can't physically change how efficient your body is at something unless you literally put the weight back on again. Now, I would like to caveat this with, if you build more muscle, you will burn more calories because muscle is more expensive. So if you would like to counteract it, build more muscle, lift some weights. Hopefully you can see where I'm going here. So those are the reasons that, like, we tend to hit a plateau. The first one being that inconsistency in tracking of calories. The second one being the inconsistency of you hitting your activity levels. The third one being you've not really plateaued. You just think you've plateaued, but actually we didn't have a right data collection. The fourth one being you've outweighed, lost your calorie deficit. And the fifth one, if I said fourth one or third one or last one, but the fifth one being that metabolic adaptation, where your body's got more efficient, you drop the amount of calories that you're burning, and again, that deficit has got smaller. So taking all of those things in mind, remembering that the things at the top are the most common and the things at the bottom are the things that will affect you the least, or be the least common. My best advice to you is, if you think that you are in a plateau, start off with steps 1, 2, and 3. And they will be those things that you can mainly action. And if you're still in a plateau after that, go to step 4 and recalculate your calorie deficit. And number 5 is just something to think about, just so that you're aware of what's going on in your body and understanding that your body is going to try sabotage you and try to get you to increase your weight again. As I said, I will be talking in the future and doing an episode about how to basically keep the weight off long term. I've been basically reading a lot of academic literature about long-term weight loss maintainers, the behaviors and the habits that they have, and making sure that I can put that into a tangible and practical way for you to be able to take that information away for good. Because I know that I have lost weight and would like to keep it off for the long term, and I assume that's why you are listening to this too. So with that in mind, hopefully you have a fantastic day. Go lift some weights and build yourself some more muscle so you are more metabolically expensive. And as always, if you have enjoyed this episode of the show, please make sure you follow, subscribe, whatever you can do on your platform, because I really do appreciate it, like, when you do, and it really helps me understand like what episodes you're enjoying, and well, that's when you rate them. And it really helps me just know that like there are people out there that are listening and that are finding this useful. So have a fantastic day, and I will catch you on the next one.